How's it going, folks? This is Mike. Um, Drinking lots and lots of ice water, trying to keep cool. It's about 95 degrees here today. And guess who doesn't have air conditioning? Yep, me. So I'm trying to keep cool here, folks. Don't worry, I'll be fine. What have I been doing lately besides trying to keep cool? I've been watching a lot of movies. In fact, a couple of days ago, I got a package from one of my favorite companies, thevideobeat.com, which I've talked about before. You see that? The Video Beat, which is a great place for finding all kinds of really obscure crime movies, teenage delinquent movies, movies about high school in the 1950s and 60s, hippies, bikers, horror movies, all kinds of really cool stuff. Rock and roll, rock and roll. So I got a package of 3 films, and I watched them all back to back on Monday. I just had the best time watching these movies. So I'd like to talk about them a little bit. They're so cool. Uh, the first film is from 1958, and it is called As Young as We Are. Okay, now the Video Beat, they always have these kind of generic packages. They just have pretty much the same design, just different colors, and then they have the title synopsis on the back of whatever film they're showing, but they never show any other artwork besides that. But who cares? As Young as We Are from 1958. It's kind of a low budget high school slash teacher drama. And the story is that these 2 high school teachers, 2 women played by Pippa Scott and Majel Barrett. Majel Barrett, who of course went on to work in Star Trek and was married to Gene Roddenberry's very early role. She's very beautiful in this. They drive off to a place called Rosario, California, which is out in the middle of nothing, to work as teachers. They've been trying to find jobs as school teachers, and everybody keeps telling them you're too young, you won't be able to handle all these rough kids, especially the boys. Well, as they're driving away to this place, they have car trouble outside of town and get sort of accosted by a couple of drunk guys who try to, instead of helping them, they try to attack them. So another guy comes along in a truck and helps them. Not only gets rid of the guys, but he helps fix their car, and he's a very good-looking young man who has an immediate attraction to Pippa Scott, and she to him. So they end up seeing each other before the school year starts, and they get very intimately involved. She has no idea that he is actually going to be one of her high school students. So on the first day of school, she's, come on, class, let's all sit down and get quiet, and let's get to work. And here this guy walks in. So he's probably about 18 years old, supposedly, in the story. And of course, it causes a big mess, all kinds of conflict, because she's really hot for this guy, and he for her, and he won't leave her alone. And so it's kind of a prescient story in a way when you hear so much these days about school teachers getting involved with their students, and a lot of them are women getting involved with young guys. But in this case, I mean, she had no idea that he was a high school student until the first day of school. So once again, Pippa Scott, who was kind of a well-known actress at the time, Majel Barrett, and the young guy, Hank Moore, is played by an actor named Robert Harland, who I've seen in other movies. He wasn't terribly well-known, but he had a very long career. Also, Ellen Corby is in it. Ty Hardin, who of course is well-known on TV as Bronco in the TV series. It's a very good movie. It's I don't know. It's kind of cool the way it's kind of a reverse situation where usually it's a grown man who's trying to seduce a young girl. In this case, it's a young man who has this sexual power over this grown woman who, up until she met this guy, was a Snow White virgin, and he kind of initiated her into sex. And as she puts it, when she's trying to get away from him, she said, "You awaken feelings in me I never knew existed." So that's kind of interesting, but it gets very dramatic at the end, and all is well, and no immorality was left unpunished, trust me. So anyway, okay, the next movie is from the year 1960. This is an MGM film. It's called Platinum High School. Platinum High School, starring none other than Mickey Rooney, and let's see, who else is in it? Terry Moore, beautiful Terry Moore, Dan Duryea, Richard Jekyll, Conway Twitty, the country singer, actually made his film debut in this as a tough guy named Billy Jack. Warren Berlinger, Yvette Mimieux, and Elisha Cook Jr. This movie was produced by Albert Zugsmith, and if that's not a name that you've heard of, you might want to do some research. He was a very prolific producer back in the 1950s and up into the 60s of a whole variety of films. A lot of them very exploitation, low-budget films like High School Confidential, College Confidential, The Big Operator. A lot of them starring my favorite blonde bombshell from that era, Mamie Van Doren. And Jackie Coogan was in a lot of them, Steve Cochran, people like that. And they usually had, just very kind of lurid titles and subject matter to go with them. And they were very, very low budget affairs, but most of them were made by MGM. He also produced films like Written on the Wind, which was an Oscar-winning film directed by Douglas Sirk. He produced The Incredible Shrinking Man, one of the best science fiction movies ever made. But his crowning glory of all the things that he produced in the United States, he produced a movie called Touch of Evil, which was directed by Orson Welles, one of the best film noirs ever made. So the guy was very interesting and very prolific, but he probably made most of his money doing these low-budget flicks. So the story about Platinum High School, Mickey Rooney plays a guy named Stephen Conway who goes to where? He goes to this remote island off the coast of California where they have this exclusive and kind of mysterious military school for boys, and it's mainly for boys who have gotten in trouble and been thrown out of other schools. And most of them come from they all come from very wealthy families, and it costs a lot of money to get into the school. So he's going there because he wants to find out what happened to his son, who mysteriously died. He was told it was an accident, but he doesn't know anything about it. In fact, he was estranged from his son almost from the kid's birth because his very wealthy wife divorced him and took away all custody. And he really never got to know his son. But he wants to find out what happened. So he goes to this island, and everybody's putting him off and trying to, actually they're trying to kill him. All these sort of accidental things keep happening, like boats come untied from ropes and they almost drop on his head, and somebody accidentally shoots a cannonball at him, all kinds of really cool things like that. But Mickey perseveres, or I should say Stephen Conway, and he finally, starts questioning people and gets to the bottom of what happened. Dan Duryea plays Major Redfern, who was the guy who runs the military school, which is crooked as hell. Played very well by Dan Duryea, who was almost always crooked as hell in a lot of film noirs of the 1940s and 1950s. Always played a really slimy character. Terry Moore is the very sexy and very horny secretary who jumps all over Major Redfern whenever she gets a chance and keeps pushing her away. Richard Jagow plays a very typical tough guy. Warren Berlinger is one of the teenagers that happened to be the roommate of Mickey Rooney's son. So he's kind of another troubled kid, and he kind of helps Mickey Rooney out in his investigation. Yvette Mimieux is there mainly for decoration, and she wears a bikini. And Elisha Cook Jr. plays a bartender, so he's kind of playing his usual shaky, ambiguous character. And is ambiguous, is that the word I'm looking for? Ambivalent. Well, one of the two. I guess they both work. So without going into great detail, it has a great climax that takes place on the water, and it involves sharks and Terry Moore in a white bathing suit. So that's all I'm going to tell you. But it's actually a very, very cool movie. Lots of fun. And finally, the third movie is from 1961. This is called 5 Minutes to Live. Okay? 5 Minutes to Live. And the alternate title, when it was re-released a few years later, it was called Door to Door Maniac. Okay? And this film stars none other than Johnny Cash, the country singer, as a small-time crook and killer named Johnny Cabot, who is asked by, this guy, Vic Tayback, plays a character named, Fred Durella, who locates this crook and asks him to come to this small town in New Jersey. It's called Camellia Falls or something like that, something really stupid. And typical small town in New Jersey, right? They're planning to do this very convoluted robbery where Fred Durella is going to go to a local bank, a savings and loan, and accost one of the bank officers there, a guy named Wilson, played by Donald Woods. while Johnny Cabot is going to go to the guy's house and take his wife hostage. Okay, so Johnny Cabot, played by Johnny Cash, goes to this woman's house, and he charms his way into her house, telling her that he is a door-to-door guitar lesson salesman, right? So he's carrying a guitar case which has a guitar, and he also has a gun with a silencer on it. So as soon as he gets in the house, he pulls a gun on her and holds her hostage. And the deal is that while the other guy's at the bank telling this banker, here's what's going on, here's what you have to do, he's going to call Johnny Cash at this woman's house, and then call every 5 minutes. And if he doesn't call within 5 minutes, if the guy doesn't hand over the money, then the wife is going to get blown away. Well, so it gets all very dramatic, and it's kind of cool in a way, because Johnny Cash, the character, gets out his guitar and he's singing the title song to the film, 5 Minutes to Live. He kind of serenades her during the day, and she finally just can't stand it anymore. She says, "Do you have to keep singing?" So it gets very sexy and lurid, and Johnny Cash actually does a very good job in this movie. He's appropriately deranged looking. He does a very good job with deranged. But the funny thing about it is that the woman's husband, the banker, is secretly having an affair with this other woman played by Pamela Mason, and he's planning to run away with her. In fact, he was planning to run away with her that day, and he hasn't said a word to his wife. So when this creep is at the bank saying, "We're going to kill your wife if you don't give us all this money," the husband simply says, "Well, I was going to divorce her anyway. I don't really care." So anyway, that sort of goes on from there. And they have a little boy, a cute little boy named Bobby, played by none other than Ronnie Howard. Okay, Ronnie Howard. That's right. Opie Cunningham, one of his early roles, and he's just as cute as Ronnie Howard always is. So this was 1961, so it would have been about the same time that he was also on the Andy Griffith Show. So it's a very cool movie. This movie was made for $300,000, and it made over $5 million. So Johnny Cash made a hit, and he's only acted in 2 theatrical films in all of his career, but he did a lot of acting on television. He's actually very good. And I look at him in this film, and I think of him in a way as compared to the very young Elvis Presley, who in his early career as an actor, making films like Jailhouse Rock and King Creole and Love Me Tender, was actually very good, very raw talent. Until later on down the line when Colonel Parker said, "Okay, let's just remake Blue Hawaii over and over again and make a lot of money." But Johnny Cash probably could have been a very good dramatic actor if he had stayed with it. So it's a very fascinating movie to watch. 5 Minutes to Live, or do you say Door to Door Maniac? All right. Okay, so anyway, that's my review of my big movie night a couple of days ago, where I had a great time. And one more thing I'd like to say before I leave. I had a great experience yesterday. I went to Barnes & Noble here in Champaign, Illinois, and it was the first day of the Criterion Collection half-price sale. So I was up there, and I was spending a lot of time looking through every single movie and reading the backs of DVDs and all that, trying to make my decision. And there was another guy that came up there shortly after I had started, and he was doing the same thing. We were both kind of intently looking at all the products and not really looking at each other or saying anything. So he finished before I did, and he checked out. And then shortly after he was gone, I checked out as well. And when I walked out of the room where they have the DVDs and the Blu-rays, I saw him standing near a bookshelf, and we kind of looked at each other. We smiled, and he walked over to me and he said, "Is your name Mike?" And I said, "Yeah, do we know each other?" And he said, "No, but I've seen you on YouTube many times, and I really like what you do." So we shook hands, and he told me his first name, and I asked him what his YouTube name was, and he said, "Well, I really don't have I don't do anything on my channel. I just watch and comment on other people's things. I don't make any videos." And I really don't want to give the guy's first name because maybe he'd like to keep his privacy, but I just want to say to my newfound friend that it was a pleasure running into you like that, and I hope that we see each other again, especially at Barnes & Noble, where I will no doubt be going back to the Criterion sale at least 2 more times before it's finished. So anyway, it was great meeting you, and thank you very much for the support. And to the rest of you, thanks for watching. Let me know if you know anything about any of the movies that I've talked about. Comments are welcome. See you later.